and players smiling.
But Michael Jordan is not only the best basketball player, but he's the most exciting basketball player to ever play.
Tatum fires away, pumps it in, 51 for Jason Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by PrizePicks and the Game Time app. Welcome to another edition of the Big Three NBA podcast. I'm your host, Sherrod Blakely, and coming to you live and direct is the man, the myth, the legend, Keith Pompey, the award-winning Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer. What's going on with you, brother?
Hey, what's good, man? I'm chilling. I'm having a good time out here in the desert, but waiting for you to come out and the fellas, and we have a good time.
With the team, we coming out there. Team Big Three NBA podcast. We're gonna be out there. Me and Gary Washburn will be out there at least. Kwani, she's probably not gonna make the road trip this time, but you know she will be with us in heart and spirit. But the thing I wanted to just kind of jump right into it with you and just talk about PG-13. Paul George is in the Philly roster. There was some rumblings, obviously, before the deal went down that Philly was in the mix for him. And you've been around the game long enough. You don't believe it until it's done. But now that he is officially a Philadelphia 76er, what are the Sixers getting with his addition to the mix?
You know, that's a great question. I feel like they're getting a guy who's the perfect fit to go along with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, right? They're getting a wing who can defend, a wing who can also play off of other players. You know what I mean? He's used to being, a part of a all-star combo, so to speak, right? So I think that when you get a guy like PG-13 coming into the mix, you're getting a guy who's going to make you better just because he can play both ends of the floor. He can make some shots. He can handle the ball a little bit. And I think that you're also going to get a hungry player as well, because his legacy is just like Joel Embiid's. Here are two guys who are great regular season players who are known for folding in the postseason. So I think that he wants to change the narrative a little bit.
Yeah, and he's filling a void that obviously exists when Tobias Harris left, which, I mean, I hate to hate on the brother, but that ain't going to be a huge void for PG-13 to fill. No disrespect to Tobias, but, my lasting impression of him was that game where he, near the very end, where he literally looked like he was just out there just sucking up air, wasn't taking shots, wasn't doing anything to impact the game. Paul George is not going to be that kind of guy. And you touched on one of the more underrated aspects of his game, and that is the two-way capability that the Sixers are getting. He may be the best two-way player. I can't think of another one. You might have one in mind, but I can't think of a better two-way player Joel Embiid has played with. How do you think that part of Paul George's game, the ability to really play at a high level defensively as well as offensively, how do you think that is going to really, impact this Sixers team this year?
I got tongue-tied because I'm trying to, get it out. But, like you said, you look at Tobias Harris, right? So when you have a guy like Tobias who struggled in his last game, and then you upgrade that with a Paul George, because basically that's who's replacing them, right? So when you have that capability, it's going to help out a lot. There are times when, not just Joel, though. We're talking about Joel. I think it's going to benefit Maxey more so than Joel, because you have a guy who has length. Do you have a small guard like Maxey? You may try to attack him. You may try to switch him, do some other things. But when you have a guy like PG, he's going to help out. He's just going to be there. I also think that with Joel, let's be real. This might be the best all-star combo that Joel had, or teammate, because when you look at James Harden, no offense to him, he couldn't guard. Right. And James needed the ball. You look at Ben Simmons, he couldn't shoot. He was scared to shoot the ball, right? So when you go down the list, and even with Maxey is great, but when you take Joel off the floor, it's easier for you to defend him. Mm-hmm. So that's why I also think the Paul George aspect is not just helping Embiid, it's going to help Maxey, because now you can't blitz Maxey like you used to, and you have this guy that can knock down shots, who can handle, who can defend. So it's just not about Joel. It's about Maxey.
Yeah, and I'm glad you transitioned into Maxey, because that's someone I definitely want to talk to you about. Last year being an All-Star, one of the most improved players in the NBA, I thought he was. But one of the things that when you start looking at guys who are young All-Stars, they get that first All-Star taste in their mouths. The thing that most of them do, who are going to not just be a one-hit wonder, a la Ben Simmons, is that they grow, they improve upon other aspects of the game. When you look at Maxey and the things that he does really well, what are some areas you think he needs to kind of work on this offseason to get better so that he can position himself to be not just a one-time All-Star, but a guy that's in that conversation year after year after year?
I think the biggest thing is when teams do blitz you. Now, again, you do have Paul George. That's going to help you out. But typically, Maxey becomes a little bit easier to guard when Embiid's off the floor. A lot of teams, the one thing that they try to do is they try to force him to go left. Well, so what you need to do is, if they're going to do that, I think you need to work hard on being able to score from that side, right? He's shown that. But it just seems like when Joel Embiid wasn't in the game, fourth quarter came, Maxey would have 30 points through 3 quarters. He would get 4 points in the fourth quarter because they were blitzing him. He was picking up his dribble, trying to pass it out, doing certain things. So he needs to work on his handle a little bit to get out of those situations, and then just be able to power through. I think that's the next step. Defensively, he's improved on his defense, right, a little bit, but I think he still needs to work on that. And the reason being is because of not just Paul George, but the other additions that they have. People are going to try to switch on Maxey all the time, and they're going to try to take advantage of him. So to me is going left, the blitzing late in the game, and then the defensive thing. And he showed some progress, but you know how it is. You have to be a little bit more consistent with it.
Yeah, and that's really, when you talk about being an all-star and someone who's in that conversation year after year after year, that's what is going to keep you there. That ability to get better, to show growth, to show improvement, to show that you just didn't have a good 82-game stretch or 40-game stretch, or however many games you played to be an all-star, but you actually are a legitimate all-star. And you touched a little bit on it, and I want to talk a bit more about it. It's just him and Joel really seemed to play well, but it just seemed that typically when you have two really good players who play well together, the goal then becomes to play great together. And when you look at this, the way those two play, what does Maxey need to do to just really kind of strengthen that on-court play, that chemistry, that him and Joel? I thought last season they were much better at it, but it still seems like there's still some room for them to get even better than they were in terms of working with each other. What do you think Maxey needs to do from his perspective to really make that relationship better?
I think that, sometimes I think that Maxey, he has a habit of deferring a little bit too much. Mm-hmm. And I think that he needs to have a better feel of Embiid and what's going on. And what I mean by that is, there's times where, Maxey is such a nice guy. He's a great teammate that he needs to be a little bit more selfish. Now, I know that sounds crazy, right? Mm-hmm. But Joel wants him to be a little bit more selfish. Right. So does Nick Nurse. And while he becomes that player, right, a little more selfish, it makes it harder to defend all of them. Because what happens is, the power forward is going to slide away from Joel, and then they're going to have somebody else doing something. And what that does is it opens up the room. It opens up the area for everyone. You know what I mean? Like, you look at it, a prime example. We're talking about, what was it, Game 5 up in against the Knicks in the first round. Tyrese Maxey became selfish, and the Sixers won that game. You know what I mean? Well, the next game or the game before that, what happened is it's late in the game, Tyrese Maxey has an open shot, but he's like, hey, I'm not the man. Joel is. He gives it to Joel. Joel attempts a fadeaway 3, and they lose. So to me, I know it sounds like it sounds like kind of crazy to say be selfish, but he has to, because that's only going to make the Sixers better, and then it's going to open up better opportunities for Joel.
No, it's not crazy, because when you start looking at the teams that are, kind of near the end of the line as far as deep playoff runs and contending for titles. They have multiple guys who figure out that balance between when to be selfless and when to be selfish. You look at the Denver Nuggets. I mean, there's no doubt that Jokic is their best player, but there are stretches where Jamal Murray is like, Jokic, I know you that dude, but I'm taking these next 5 shots. So you need to get ready to rebound and kick it back to me because I'm going to be that. I'm going to be him. The Celtics, Tatum, I think most people agree is their best player, but Jaylen Brown has figured out when he needs to be that alpha. And you start going down the line of the top tier teams, they have a clear alpha, but they also have a guy who knows that, I may not be the man 24/7, but right now it's my shift. I need to be that guy. And Maxey, you're right. I think he does need to kind of figure that out. And maybe it's just a maturity thing or not maturity, but just something that you figure out over time, maybe. That's what you hope for if you're the Sixers fans, because if it's more than that, he may just be this guy that go out there and get you 20-some-odd points a night, but it doesn't really give you those impactful points. Because we all know there's certain cats who can go like 4 for 16 in the game, have 11 points, but they score 9 of those 11 points in the fourth quarter. Right when you absolutely need them to come through. So, but, along those same lines, Keith, everything at the end of the day always comes back to Joel Embiid. He's going to be the focal point of what they do. Whatever success this franchise has, he's going to have to be the one driving that train. And, I was reading some comments that he made recently with Team USA and talked about how, him and Steve Kerr are figuring out just a way to kind of ramp him back up to being, playing the kind of way that he wants to play, playing the minutes that he wants to play. And it got me to thinking, like, wait a minute. This brother is basically saying he's not quite in great basketball shape before we even get to the regular season. So if you have a deep tournament run, which Team USA probably will, is there a concern that he may not be in the best of shape when camp starts? And if that's the case, how concerned should the Sixers be about his condition? Because there's always something they're concerned about, I know, to some extent. But with him having this extra layer of basketball, Team USA to play, is there a concern that he may not be in the shape that they would ideally want him to be in? And for that matter, he would ideally want to be in going into the regular season.
I think the fact that he's playing for Team USA is if everything goes according to plan, meaning if he doesn't get any injuries. If I'm the 76ers, I'm elated because that means that this is going to be the first time in several years that Joel Embiid is showing up to training camp in some sort of basketball shape. The last couple of years he had injuries, he got married, he did other things that really he wasn't able to play. I'm with you. It is kind of disappointing to see, and then last night you saw he didn't look like he was in shape at all.
Right.
When they played that game against Canada. But if I'm the 76ers, I'm saying to myself, you're sitting there, Nick Nurse, Daryl Morey, Elton Brand are praying before every game. And then after the game, they're saying, thank you, Jesus, thank you, Allah, whomever, right? Because you're elated that the guy didn't get hurt. Because I'm telling you, Sherrod, it's been years. What they do is, he's saying this stuff now, is they figure out ramp-ups. Everybody else is playing in preseason games, and he's not. He's not really practicing. He's using the first 10 games of the regular season to get back in shape. So this might be the first time that, it's going to work out. So if I'm the Sixers, I'm a little excited and happy, to be honest with you. It's sad, but it is what it is.
It is. And that ramp up that you talk about, it may not seem like that big a deal, but when you are trying to do what they are, which is make a deep playoff run, position yourself to win a championship, that means, frankly, winning as many games as you should win and maybe win some you're not supposed to. And when you're giving away games early on because your best player is not ready to be the best player for your team, you're going to catch an L or two that you probably shouldn't, that if the season, ends and you're a game and a half out of having, a higher seeding and a better, more favorable matchup, you're going to be like, man, if we could have just won another game or two, and you think back, damn, our best player, he wasn't ready to start the season. And this is when that comes back to bite us in the ass. I do worry about Joel's health because when he's healthy, there are very few players that are more dominant than him, particularly when you talk about his ability to defend, his ability to score on a block, and his ability to score from the perimeter. Few players with that kind of bulk, that kind of girth, that kind of physical play can dominate the way he can. And, it's been to the benefit of his foes that he has not been 100% when the games matter most. And again, as you pointed out, Keith, I mean, he was fighting through some things, in the playoffs last year and wasn't in his best shape.
You want to catch the hottest games this summer, but don't want to mortgage the family home or take a second job to do so, right? Game Time makes getting tickets to events like WNBA games even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. That's a huge get when it comes to getting great deals at the ballpark or basketball arena nearest you. Here in Boston, every season is sporting season. So for me, the Game Time app makes it super easy to find tickets for just about every sport in my area, which is great this time of year when family and friends just happen to pop into town at the last minute and you're scrambling to find something to do, and you're trying to find something to do that won't break the bank, like getting tickets to see the red-hot Red Sox play who are playing some of their best baseball right now. Game Time has you covered. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
And with some of the additions they made, specifically, he now has a legitimate backup big man who puts up big man type numbers, has done so, has a former All-Star in that regard. How much is that going to help Joel? And specifically, will the Sixers look to do a little bit more load management type schedule with him now that they've got a guy that, in theory, you could throw him in, you could throw Andre in there for like 10, 15, 20 games to start for you, and he's not going to kill you.
Yeah, I think this benefits the Sixers big time. I mean, Andre Drummond is a guy who they've been trying to get back since they traded him to Brooklyn.
I'm still not sure. Do you remember what they got for him when they traded him?
Wow, that was in the James Harden deal. So what they did is they traded him, Seth Curry, and Ben Simmons, and they got back, and I think they gave up draft picks too, dude.
Right.
They ended up giving up last year's first round pick, right? So and they got back. It was two guys. It was Paul Millsap, who they wanted him to be the backup center, and that didn't work out. Right. And they ended up having to sign in DJ, who played for the, oh my gosh, what's his name? DJ, who played for the Clippers.
Not Doja, Mubamba or something?
Nah, DJ. He played for the Clippers, and then he was with the Lakers, and that didn't work out. Oh, man, you know what I'm talking about. He used to, the guy who was about to go to Dallas, and Doc and them didn't let him meet with Dallas. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. He played at Texas A&M.
Yeah, him. Yeah.
I know you're talking about.
Yeah. So that's what they got. But yeah, that's what they got him in the buyout market. But anyway, so he's a guy that's going to help them from that. He's going to, and also a guy that they have faith in who can start some games. I mean, the problem in the past was, you saw it. You had Paul Reed who had some solid games, but for the most part, whenever Joel Embiid wasn't on the floor, it became a layup line. Yep. And when you have a guy like Drummond, you know what I mean, he can, protect the rim. He has a big body. He's going to grab rebounds. He's going to do a lot of things, and it's going to enable them to rest Embiid. It's going to enable him to have the confidence and stuff to say, like, look, okay, maybe I don't have to play on this back-to-back just because, we have Drummond and, then they won't need me as much. The only thing is, I feel like personally, like, how Joel is. It's going to be some times when Joel going to look at it and be like, look, y'all, I'm trying to win the scoring title. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. And it's going to be, in the past, it always been this way, Sherrod. There's been a day where Joel was supposed to miss a game, and then at the last minute, he's telling them, nah, I'm playing. So, it's going to be up to Nick Nurse and them to be like, nah, you're not playing today. You're not playing. But they do have the luxury now to rest them up.
And I think, I think for Joel, if they can see some success with that, like if he's sitting out a game here and there, and Andre goes in there and does his thing, and they win, and it becomes clear that he's got a backup that can step in a pinch and help them win games, I think it becomes easier for him to just kind of sit back and take a night off, knowing that this is going to be good for him long term. That means less wear and tear on his body. That means when you get to April, hopefully you can keep playing well enough so that you can see May and then maybe June. Hopefully he's at a point where he can see the big picture. Because I know, Al Horford, when the Celtics first were really trying to convince him about load management, Al did not like that at all. Al's Al's old school. He's Al knows it's from that era when if you missed a game only if you were hurt to the point where you could not play. Not whether you couldn't play well. You could not play. That's when you missed a game. And now the idea of missing games just because they want you to get some rest, it took Al a minute to adjust to that. But ultimately, they kept selling Al on a concept that this is going to make sure that you are healthy when the games matter most, which is the playoffs. Hopefully Joel can kind of get that message. But the point that you made, which I think is interesting, Nick Nurse ultimately has to be that – he needs to be that voice to tell Embiid, nah, you ain't playing tonight. And we're not going to – this is not a conversation. That's a direct order. How has Nick Nurse, from your perspective, grown or evolved or changed or modified to where he's got a better command of the team? Because when you're – even with a championship that he got in Toronto – it still felt that he was kind of learning how to deal with them and how to manage those egos, and they were still learning how to work with him as well. How is that process looking at this point?
That's a great question because it's weird because when Nick first came here, he wanted to run more of like, I want to say like a motion offense, like where everyone touched the ball. It was more free flowing. Like if you had a shot, you would take it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, Joel pointed out certain things to him. But then he realized that the combo that he had of the two-man game with Maxey and Embiid gave them their best chance of winning, right, in the regular season. So it was more or less, to me, he took suggestions from the guys. Mm-hmm. And then it got to a point where, everyone wasn't happy if you weren't the star player, but it worked. And then it got to a point where when they went out, when Embiid got hurt, then guess what? He switched the offense up again. Mm-hmm. And it got to a point where there's certain guys like Kyle Lowry came and other people, and they realized that if you listen to Nick Nurse and you do what he says, you're going to get some results. Right. You know what I mean? So I feel like he did get the command of them. Now, initially, guys were, some guys were a little upset. Yeah. They didn't like to see their roles dwindle away. But I think that the fact that he was able to go from one style of play to another one that benefited Embiid and Maxey, then when Embiid goes out, you go to a different one. Then you get, new trade guys. Like they did 5 different things last year. And I think because of that, and they had success along the way, I think that he does have command of it, right? Mm-hmm. He does. Now, again, the tricky part is, Sherrod, is, of course, you only got 2 dudes that you really going to use. They only have 3 players from last year's team coming back. Or I take it back, you got 4 because you got Kelly Oubre, right? So the real test is going to be, what is Caleb Martin going to feel like? What is Paul George going to feel like? What about Drummond? Because this team is completely different we know that Maxey and Embiid are going to be happy because one guy is the number one option and the other guy has the ball in his hands. So that real test is going to come. How are these guys going to come in and feel like, am I being utilized the right way? Am I going to be utilized the right way? So that's tough on him because he got to find, let's be real. He has to find a way to incorporate Paul George to where Paul George is happy. You know what I mean? Because he's the new guy. You got to incorporate him.
Yeah, and that we've been in the league long enough to know that when you bring a new guy in, it usually takes some time for them to figure out where they fit in and what can they do and what can they not do. What does the team need and what does the team not need from them? That's a really, really big deal. And you mentioned Caleb Martin. The Celtics fans hate Caleb Martin.
They do.
Caleb Martin's best basketball in his life has come against the Celtics, specifically matched up with Jason Tatum. The year that they jumped out to that 3-0 lead and the year before that where Miami beat the Celtics in the conference final, Caleb Martin played maybe the best 5, 6, 7 stretch of basketball in his life. And Celtics fans, they look at him going to Philly, they're thinking like, okay, this is Philly's way of trolling the Celtics by signing a one dude who, he balls out against the Celtics. I mean, he is not afraid. And then it got a little testy last year because Caleb had a hard foul against Tatum, and Jaylen Brown got in his face basically saying, that's not happening here. And so it's to me, it's perfect that he's a Philly now. He's a Philly guy because it only adds to the angst and the nastiness that these two have.
The Boston Celtics just added another championship to their NBA record 18 titles, but there's plenty of games to keep the die-hard sports fans and the casuals more than happy. You can get in on the action with Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with more than 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. And there's no better time than now to get in on the action. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Now for the Mathematically Challenge, here's what that means. You can turn $10 into $1,000 just like that. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and the rest of the Boston Celtics are still celebrating, but that doesn't mean the basketball stops bouncing with Prize Picks. Women's basketball is still heating up with stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese looking to make names for themselves alongside some of the WNBA greats such as Breanna Stewart and A'ja Wilson. You can win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out this summer. For me, I love the ease and convenience Prize Picks offers by being able to pick more or less on 2 to 6 players. It's super easy to get involved and it's a lot of fun. So to get in on the fun, just download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS, downloading the Prize Picks app and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
But I wanted to, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Olympics. We touched on it with Joel Embiid, but we kind of alluded to, with Kawhi Leonard, he's no longer with the team getting ready for the season in the Clippers, which, this brother in load management, really, he's load managing he's been load managing for his all but maybe 2-3 years of his career, it feels like. But the selection committee, after Kawhi left, they decided to add the Celtics, Derrick White, who really, really good player. Led the league in block shots by a guard, really all-NBA defender, good player. But there was some chatter about another Celtic who probably should have made it, or certainly an argument could have been made for them as well, and that is the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, the NBA Finals MVP, Jaylen Brown. And Jaylen has some interesting social media posts, kind of, wondering what just happened. You've seen both of those guys play. You know what they can do. If you're the Olympic Committee and you're picking, you got to replace Kawhi Leonard, would you have gone with Derrick White or would you have gone with Jaylen Brown?
That's I hate that they had to decide between the two. But when I look at it, I think I would have gone with Derrick White. And this is my reason. Is Jaylen Brown the best player? Yes. Did Jaylen Brown deserve to be on that team? No doubt about it. But when I look at the things that Derrick White can do, Jaylen Brown is a guy that's, you're going to want him. He's going to score. He's going to do all these other things. But then I look at, you got Ant-Man. You got a couple other players who are similar.
You got your teammate Tatum.
You got your teammate Tatum. But when you look at Derrick White and you'll say, look, bro, we need somebody to come in here and you ain't going to get no shots probably, but you're going to just guard. You're going to do all this selfless stuff. People aren't going to recognize you. You ain't going to get no interviews probably, right? But guess what you're going to do? You're going to ball out. Like, it's the same reason why Drew Holiday is starting, because you need somebody out there that's going to do the dirty stuff, that do the unheralded stuff. And I feel like as great as the Boston Celtics team was this year, there was 2 dudes or 3 dudes who got a lot of the accolades. And I'm talking about Tatum, Brown, and Kristaps got it, right? And then Al. Everybody loves Al. But I'm telling you, they would not have won that championship, in my opinion, if it wasn't for the selfless stuff that Derrick White and Drew did. So, again, popularity, you got to go with Jaylen. But if you already got LeBron, Ant-Man, Steph, Tatum, all these other guys on the team, you need a guy that's going to be there that's like, you know what? I'm just trying to win, and I'm going to do everything in their power to help y'all win. But the one thing, Sherrod, I'm going to say this. I don't like that they had to choose between the two. I don't like that at all, because I feel like, when I think of these 2 guys, these 2 brothers, I think of them going to Colorado or in the preseason to see a football game. I think of 2 smart brothers who get along from what I see. And then all of a sudden you picking one over the other one, and then some feelings could happen. It's kind of like with Dallas. And remember when they said Brown was the best player, and what that was supposed to do, it was supposed to be divisive for the team. And then it didn't work. It backfired. But so now you see it, and then you see Brown tweeting or, saying something. I just don't like it, man. I'm going to be honest with you, because all I see is 2 brothers who win. And guess what? Brown has ascended to the man. But what he need to do is just let this motivate him and realize that, Derrick, he's just going to do stuff that's above your pay grade. I mean, below your pay grade. Like, you know what I'm saying? No offense. Right. But they want him to be a role player and do things. Are you going to be happy with not getting any shots and just D'ing people up? And then when you get the ball, pass the ball, and then just be as a space setter? You know what I mean? So, you want to get that medal, but, dude, it's below your pay grade. And no offense to Derrick, but it is. You're a star now. They want him to be a role player.
Right. And that's, when you talk about teams that win championships, whether it's an NBA title, Olympic gold medal, you need to have a couple guys who are just out there to do whatever is asked of them with no questions asked. And that's kind of been Derrick White's MO since he's been with the Celtics. I mean, this brother, we've seen this brother get teeth knocked out. We've seen him get cuts just head cracked open. And he's like, okay, just stitch me up and I'm going to just keep balling. And you don't see anyone else, literally throwing their body in harm's way as often as he does, because all he cares about is winning. And I know a lot of players say that, but when you look at their play, you look at their body of work, you look at the sacrifices that they make, like literally physical sacrifices every game. Derrick White is in a different class. There's no doubt about that. And, the Celtics, it's one of the things that made them such a good team. I've been around really, really good teams, and from a talent standpoint, they're right up there. But from an egoless standpoint, from no egos, that to me was the biggest surprise about this team. I mean, at no point did you get a sense that somebody was in their feelings, not even when people were trying to pit Jason and Jaylen against each other all season long, trying to, kind of get Al into the conversation like, Al, you're coming off the bench. Shouldn't you be starting over Porzingis? And Al's just like, look, I'm just trying to get a chip, y'all. I mean, I'm not tripping. Everyone knows what I do, and I'm going to do what I do when I get on the floor. And that, to me, is just – you're right, Keith. I mean, the way that Jaylen responded when Derrick got picked, that kind of bothered me a little bit because that was the first cracks I had seen all season long of maybe a little bit of jealousy, maybe a little bit of like, why you and not me-ism going on. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens when they get into training camp and Tatum and Brown come back with them gold medals and they flashing the gold medals. How is Jaylen going to take that? When talking to people, the thing that everyone keeps telling me about Jaylen is this is a brother that finds a way to be motivated and take things personal and play with a chip on his shoulder. And this is just another one. This is just another way for him to go into the offseason with the mindset that somebody's don't believe I can ball. I'm going to show you what I can do. Winning NBA Finals, I guess that wasn't enough. Eastern Conference Finals, I guess I got to do more. What do I got to do more? I got to be even better than I was. And so it'll be interesting to see how he handles that. But no matter what, the Celtics are going to be the team everyone's gunning for, and the Sixers are no different in that regard. The moves that we talked about PG-13. We talked about Drummond, bringing in Caleb Martin, another guy that kind of fits in the mix. Are these moves, from your perspective, collectively bringing Philly closer to Boston?
Yeah, it brought Philly closer to Boston, but I still don't think that they can beat Boston. And I think that if you right now, if we go by the pecking order, I have Boston, I have the Knicks, and then I have the Sixers in the East. And the thing about it is, you gotta, and all the Knicks and the Sixers are both making moves to defend Boston. Like they want to get people who they feel like can shut down Tatum and Brown, right? Either or, this and that. So you have the Sixers right now. You have PG, a good defender. You have Caleb Martin, who does very well against the Celtics, right? Mm-hmm. But my question is, who's going to be like, Jason Tatum plays the 4. He's an extremely athletic wing, but Tatum's 6'10", right? He's just athletic, man. So my question is, who you going to put on him? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to put PG on him, right? So if you put PG on him, well, who going to stop Brown, right? Right now, so as good as Caleb Martin is, and y'all saying the Sixers are saying right now, or people are assuming right now that he's going to be the power forward. Well, he's the second shortest dude in the starting lineup. So, you know what I mean? Like, so we got concerns right now, right. In my opinion. I feel like that they still need to go out there and get somebody like Mook Morris was somebody who they were, targeting other people. But the problem with Mook is I don't know if he can guard Tatum or Brown, right? You know what I mean? He can't do that. So to me, what the 76ers are doing, yes, they got closer to Boston. They got closer to the Knicks. But right about now, with the moves that they made, the pressure is going to be on the Sixers, more so than it is the Knicks and more so it is Boston. Of course, everybody's going to say you got to repeat. But the fact is, they're making these moves to compete with them. And now you got the best big 3 in the Eastern Conference, people are going to say, right? Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, the pressure comes more so than ever for them to get out of the second round, something they haven't done, and for them to compete against the Celtics. But my question is, who's playing the 4? And I know this is positionless basketball, but let's keep it real. We talking about a brother that's 6'10", with guard-like skills. So you can do that, but he's still 6'10".
Yeah. And the thing about Tatum that, I don't think gets nearly enough credit or attention is the improvement in his post game. I mean, Tatum is a beast on that elbow. When he turns his back to you, I mean, because he can shoot the fadeaway. He's got a good enough handle where if he gets you on that elbow in an ISO situation, he can beat you off the dribble. He's shown the ability to move without the ball. And the Celtics, Drew Holiday and even Jaylen Brown, they're finding him on cuts to the basket. He's become a lethal scorer. He's not just a guy that catch and shoots threes anymore or looks to kind of, dance with the ball and try to go to the rim. He's finding different ways to score and impact the game. But to your point, I mean, Philly, when you look at the moves they've made, there's no doubt that they're targeting what can we do to close the gap between us and Boston. And, one of the things I want to play a quick game with you, I like to call Fill the Lane. And I'm going to read a sentence to you. I'm going to leave a blank in that sentence, and you need to fill that blank. So here's a question, or here's a sentence. Philly needs to blank in order to move past the Celtics and emerge as a team to beat in the East.
Wow. Philly needs to – oh, that's a good one. Philly needs to have an extremely healthy Joel Embiid. That's the first thing. Yeah.
Because I mean, we've seen what that looks like, and one of the things, if there is an area of weakness with the Celtics, it's their big man depth. Because right now you've got Porzingis, who's going to be out for the first few weeks, maybe first couple of months of the season, recovering from surgery. So now you got Al Horford as your starting center, which, if this were 2014, that wouldn't be so bad. But it's 2024, and there's a lot of miles on those tires. So he doesn't impact the game quite how he used to. And then you look behind him, you've got Luke Cornett. Then you've got, Neemias Queta, the first, a young guy who shows a lot of potential. But Joel, potential ain't going to cut it against Joel. I mean, that's, Joel sees that dude coming to the game, and he's just like, okay, chicken, time to get some chicken. It's time to eat. And that's the problem I think that the Celtics will have against a team like Philly if with Porzingis out, because Porzingis at least can help you stretch the floor because he can shoot threes, even if he can't bang like you would with Joel. But you're right, though. I mean, a healthy Joel, we've seen what that looks like. And if he can stay healthy, Maxey can play with a little bit more swag, when Joel is out of the game as well as when he's in there. And Paul, George makes a relatively seamless transition to this team and understands his role and plays it at a relatively high level. Yeah, Philly could be a problem. They can absolutely be a problem. And I personally would love to see the Celtics and Philly meet in the playoffs, because that means I'm going to Philly, and that's a good thing. I'm a big fan of Philly. Go Eagles, my team. So slip that in there. But like I said, this is great conversation, because this is something that we will absolutely be paying attention to, because the Celtics, they may be in a driver's seat, but they are definitely keeping an eye on who's in that rearview mirror, and Philly is right there with New York. I agree with you. I don't know if there's a whole lot of distinction between those two. I think it may very well come down to which of those two is the healthier team to be the bigger challenge to the Celtics this year. But all I know is we got an exciting season coming up. Good teams, good players, good drama. Now that Caleb Martin is with this Philly, so that Philly rivalry is going to be even more feistier than ever. Well, look, that is it for this episode of the the Big Three NBA podcast. Want to give a quick shout out to our good friend Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of CLNS Media Network, and also our friends at Game Time, which takes the guesswork out of buying last-minute tickets to your favorite sporting events. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's it for this episode. I want to thank our guest, Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer. You can check out his award-winning work online, and if you're in the Philly area, pick up the newspaper. They actually still print newspapers, y'all. So if you're in the Philly area, definitely check out my man's work. He's doing great work, and he's out in Vegas doing his thing, and I will be joining him in Vegas in a few short days to bring you some of the Celtics Summer League action as well. So again, for Keith Pompey, this is Sherrod Blakely. This is the Big Three NBA Podcast.